Hello, my name is Benjamin Richards, and this is my presentation for my game pitch Train Rush for CIS 488. To begin, the abstract of my game summary includes that Train Rush is a fast-paced first-person shooter with platforming elements. The challenge of the game is to reach the end of the train where the player is aboard in order to reach a desired goal. Each train is littered with enemies and puzzles that the player must overcome to progress on the respective train, and hopping to another train will shift the player's objective. The gameplay loop will involve the player going through difficult enemies and environments, thus a reset system will be in place where the player will restart from the start of the game, similar to a roguelike, incentivizing that the player will have multiple runs on their playthrough. For a little bit of game summary, you are a cybernetically enhanced fugitive that wakes up aboard a bullet train captured by police and headed to a maximum security prison. Along these train tracks lie different trains that are used for other purposes in society. Reach the end of your train or hop onto other trains to reach the caboose where you'll find different endings at each caboose. And here we have a little sketch here made by me of what the concept of how the level will look like where you're on top or within these train cars. For an abstract of the game summary, my idea is that the player will be able to change trains periodically, where the theme of the game will unlock a different ending. Those themes that are the concepts around what the player will be going for is escaping this prison train from where they currently reside in, where the player will spawn, heading for the power train, which will induct more powerful enemies and which will be a harder path to take, or taking the federal train where they can gain money to purchase more weapons for further runs. For the audience, this game is designed for players who are familiar and often play fast-paced movement shooters that involve platforming and various enemy types. The rating will be similar to the ESRB's M, as it includes violence, action, and a lot of gore. I don't want this to be a censored game in any way. It will be in the first person's perspective, and it will also have a cyberpunk theme. Of course, the age will be 18 plus, and any gender can play it. For the appearance of the game, Train Rush will be set in a futuristic cyberpunk dystopian world where goods and services that are vital to society are kept on moving trains. Thus, the trains, along with the surrounding environment, will be high tech and impressive to view while the player traverses the world on their respective moving train. For the player's roles and actions that they can perform, there is, of course, shooting, where the weapon system will include raycast style shooting and multiple weapons. There will be a movement system that will have high base speed, jumping, air control, sliding crouching, and dashing. The player will also have one life as previously stated, similar to a roguelike or permadeath, and the player will be able to periodically transition the level by hopping trains and of course changing their theme and the ending goal. For the strategies and motivations, strategies that will invoke the player to play to the best of their ability is the movement system. Making a refined movement system that is crisp and responsive will allow the player to have full control over their playthrough. Moreover, implementing a combat system where the player will have to switch weapons periodically will make the player more engaged to fight with the various enemy types that will be scattered throughout the levels. The motivation to keep the player playing will be in the form of a timer on the screen that will be tracking how long they are playing for. Implementing a ranking system that will incentivize the player to complete the level in a shorter time will incentivize the player to speedrun the game and play it more often. For the story progression and level summary, the gameplay involves traversing through many trains and train cars in order to get to the end of the train, or the caboose. In your way lies a multitude of enemies, and their theme, behavior, and weapon uses will change from train to train. As the player goes from train car to train car, there will be a counter in the top left-hand side of the screen that shows their progress on that train. Moreover, when the counter reaches to 100 or an arbitrary number, that will be the caboose of the respective train, and it will allow the player to reach the end of the game. If the player decides to hop to another train, the progression will be reset on the new train and the difficulty will increase. For the hardware specifications of Train Rush, it is recommended that a Intel or AMD mid-range chip is used, that 8 gigabytes of memory be allocated for the game, that we have a mid-range NVIDIA or AMD GPU, 10 gigabytes of space for the game to be played in. And for our software, the development platform will be the Unreal Engine 5.0.3 on the Windows 10 or 11 systems. We want our version control on GitHub or GitHub Desktop, and of course we'll be using Visual Studio Code to edit our scripts and our game thus.